Hello, welcome back to Kay's in the Garden. I'm Kay, and this is my garden. So welcome back to part 2 of harvesting and preserving. So we're going to head into the kitchen where we're going to preserve the harvest from the last video, and we're going to preserve it in several different ways. And I will share with you pretty close to step-by-step instructions on what we're doing. So let's go ahead and head into the kitchen and get started. Okay, guys, so it is the next day after harvesting, and we're picking up here in my office where we actually keep my freeze dryer. I did keep the freeze dryer in one of the spare bedrooms in the front of the house, but I started noticing whenever we had guests and I had to roll it out, it was messing up my carpet. So I decided to bring it here in the office. I typically don't run it unless it's after I get off of work and then I let it run overnight, or I might run it over the weekend. Or if I decide I want to run it during work hours, I can easily roll it out. It is on a table that has wheels. So I'm going to go ahead and turn you around so you can see where I have it in the stand that I have it on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Here is my freeze dryer. I do have a Harvest Right medium size freeze dryer. I've had it for about maybe 3.5, 4 years. And since then they've had an upgrade where you can see I have 4 trays. I can do an upgrade and they'll send me a rack that has 5 trays, and they're a little bit closer together than you see on mine. So I figured, what's the difference? I can either put a little bit more on each tray, or I can put less and just have more trays. So I have been kind of contemplating on back and forth if that's what I want to do, but I haven't decided yet. So as of right now, I still have maintained the 4 trays. Okay, so here's the table that I have it on. It's more of those commercial grade tables that can hold a lot of weight. And then I'll keep my roaster that I use for chicken broth, or when I am creating a marinara sauce, I keep that on the bottom rack. But that table is on wheels, so I can move it around. So this is where I keep it in my office. Let's go ahead and get it started. Before we get started in adding the food into the freeze dryer, I will not go into a lot of the details as far as how much it cost or the setup, because it's been a minute and I'm not sure if the prices are the same. But you can easily go to their website and take a look. Again, I have the medium size, and I actually had quite a bit of issues at the beginning when I first got my freeze dryer. So I went through several rounds of over the phone tech support and, try this, tighten this, loosen this. I even had to take the casing off and look at some of the internal parts. And then after that didn't work, I will tell you, Harvest Right did send out a slip for a heavy duty pickup. And they had the freeze dryer shipped back to them. And when they did that, they were able to troubleshoot and see what was wrong. And they indicated nothing was wrong, but when they sent it back to me, I still could not get a full cycle. So we did some more troubleshooting, and I even had to take the casing back off, and they had me add some type of silicone covering around a tube that was preventing the suction to pull, or if you know me, then you know me. I'm not technical. I just ended up, it was a little challenging for me. So I ended up getting my husband to help me, but we ended up just adding some silicone around the tube, and then that resolved the issue. So I went about 10 months or so without even using my freeze dryer. But if you would like more up-to-date information, how to set it up, maybe some of the cost, I know if you go over to see Asia at Yellow Door Urban Homestead, she does have a recent video where she got her freeze dryer from Harvest Right, and she provided quite a bit of information. So for me, I primarily use it for herbs and I've tried different things like the traditional candy and stuff like that that they said is really good. I have also tried like dehydrating snacks. I want to try dehydrating some of my chicken broth so that I have the powdery chicken bouillon type seasoning. I think I'm going to do that this year. But I know Asia has by far surpassed me in all the things that she has run through her freeze dryer, like avocados. I thought was very interesting, and even like leftover food, like spaghetti and things like that. So I will be trying a lot more this year with my freeze dryer, but for now, I primarily use it for a lot of the herbs, onions, garlic, things like that. So let me turn you around. I'll show you how I turn it on. It's literally 2 switches and a couple buttons to press. So in the back, there's some power buttons, and then there's a separate attachment that's like the vacuum. And so the vacuum has a power switch on it as well. So I turn those 2 on. As you can see here on the screen, you just have to press start. And then it will give me, it gives you this message that you have to wait 15 minutes for the vacuum chamber to cool down. And then once the 15 minutes is up, you can load your trays. All right, so now we're over into the kitchen, and I've already started cleaning some of the herbs that we harvested, which was the garlic chives, the dill, and the oregano. So I'm going to prep them for the trays. And then I had started washing the green onion tops. So I've already washed these. I just left them in here to drain a little bit. We do want the food to be as dry as possible. It just makes the freeze dryer have to work harder when you have quite a bit of moisture. Because again, it's freezing it and then it's going to vacuum dry the moisture. So basically all I did was I didn't go through each individual one. I just looked for any of the greens that didn't look so great or that had kind of a dry tip. And then I took those out and I just used this. This is a salad spinner. I was using it to dry out the herbs after I washed them. And then it just became kind of a compost pile after that. So what I'm going to do is finish the few that I have here. And then I am going to take these the onion tops, and I am going to put it into a food processor, and I'm going to just make smaller pieces. The one thing about a freeze dryer is that the smaller the pieces or the least amount of moisture in the items, for example, if you can freeze it first, it will run faster, or I should say it doesn't take as long to process. So something standard like these herbs would probably take about 12 hours max. If I really kind of pile them on top of each other, which you really shouldn't do, like make multiple layers, it takes longer, like 12 hours. But if I keep a thin layer, then I could probably get it done a lot faster than 12 hours. Now, if you know me, you know I pile it on. So it's going to probably take about 12 hours, which is fine because I usually just let it run overnight. So let me get to processing these green onions. You'll see me layering them on the tray, and then we're going to get them into the freeze dryer. Okay guys, so this is the 2 trays that we just filled. This is the oregano. And as I mentioned to you, because of the green onion tops being a little bit moist, it will take those a little bit longer to freeze dry. So I'm okay with really just packing the oregano on. And then over here, I had quite a bit of more, so I went ahead and added that to half of this tray. And then I have the dill on this half. We're about 20 minutes out before the freeze dryer cycle finishes with the herbs. So what I'm going to do is show you how I'm going to preserve the chives, the garlic chives. Okay, let me turn the camera around and show you what I have already started doing. Okay, so as you can see here, I've already started cutting up the chives. And in each of these bowls, I have 2 oils. This is olive oil and this is butter, melted butter. So I'm going to cut each of these chives. I'm going to cut the chives and then apply them into each of the oils. Then I'm going to take the oil covered chives and place them in these molds. So I have different size molds. This one, as you can compare to the size of my finger, it's just kind of a small square. These are more like ice trays that have a lid. And so they do have a silicone bottom, so it's going to be easy to pop these out. I decided not to use this one. I think it's a little bit too large. And after cutting them, I started realizing I didn't have enough chives for probably the different sizes. So I'm going to do 1 olive oil and 1 butter coated chives, and then I'll put this in the freezer. Once it freezes, then I will pop them out and put them in a Ziploc bag where I will keep them in my freezer. I was trying to think different ways I would use the chives, and so I felt like when I'm cooking, if I needed to use chives, if I'm sauteing something, the olive oil probably would be best. And then the butter coated olive oil would be for like baked potatoes, or if I was using it on top of a steak, something like that. I can use them in different ways. Okay, so let's finish chopping these up and get them into the trays. Just to kind of let you see, I literally just have the chives covered, and that's going to help for them to kind of bond together when it freezes. I may add a little bit more oil once I get it into the tray, but I start off with less oil because I can always add more oil. You can fill these up as little or as much as you like. Okay, this is the finished result. So this is the olive oil and this is the butter. If you prefer, you can just put your chives in the container and then add your oil. If you feel like you need a little bit more oil in yours, you can always come back and add just a drizzle or 2. You do not want it full with the oil because you might have too much oil in your food. So I just use enough that where it freezes, it can bind. Okay. So here to the side, I have a few examples of ones that I've already made before. So this is garlic. So when I have garlic harvest, I will mince the garlic, pretty much put it in a food processor. And then I won't grind it up so fine. I still have pucks, little garlic pieces in here. And this one is garlic basil butter. So this has garlic, basil, and butter. And as you can see, it has a different mold to it. And then this is just basil and olive oil. Okay. And so that's some of the ones I've done previous. I've also done a garlic butter where I've just melted down a stick of butter and grinded up some garlic and put it back into a mold. Pretty much the same size as a regular butter stick. And I have frozen that. So then I already have home prepared garlic butter. And I just keep them in a Ziploc bag in my freezer. And I label it. And then whenever I'm ready to use it, I just pull it out. I'm going to get those back into the freezer before they melt. I'm going to get our molds into the freezer. And hopefully by the time we finish with the freeze-dried food, they will be frozen, and I'll show you the end results of those. Okay, as you can see, the freeze dryer process is complete. So it does warn you that the trays will be warm. They are pretty warm, but they're not too hot to touch, but you want to be careful taking them out. And then it also, if you open up your freeze dryer and feel like it's not dry enough, you can close it back up and continue to dry just by clicking the more dry time. And then you can also defrost it, but I tend to just let mine just thaw out. Let me go ahead and get these trays out. I'm not sure if you can tell, but the inside of this chamber is filled with ice. So that's pretty much what it's asking if you want it to defrost this ice. But let me share with you what happened. So there's a tube that runs to the side of the freeze dryer, and I put a bowl there, so as it thaws out, it will drain into this bowl. I will tell you that water smells just like whatever you were dehydrating, so it's not a pleasant smell sometimes, but just dump it out. I usually just pour it down my sink. All right, so let's get back over to preserving our food. Okay, so we're back over to the kitchen counter where I am going to start off with the green onion tops. There is still a little moisture in here, so that's kind of still frozen. Let's have one spot right here. Now there's two things I can do. If I find more moisture in here, I will put it back in the freeze dryer, which I might just end up doing that for this part here. But we are going to move forward. This is pretty good. There's no moisture in here. As you can see, it's all powdered down. Okay, I don't have any moisture in this tray. So what I'm going to do is we're going to work this tray. Okay. All right. So what I have here is a mason jar where I'm going to store it. The biggest enemy to freeze-dried herbs is, or anything pretty much freeze-dried, is moisture. And so you want to have something like an oxygen absorber in the container or the drawer or wherever you're preserving it. Even if you're using a Mylar bag, you want to use an oxygen absorber. So it will absorb any moisture, because any moisture that touches this will reconstitute it back into its original state. So I'll do a little sample. I'll put some of this back into a small bowl with some water so you can see what it looks like when you rehydrate it. And I also have this small little blender that I'm going to put it into the cup and blend it up. Then we'll add it into our mason jar. So let me set you up and we'll get started with this. Okay, guys, I just realized that my camera was not recording and I didn't get the oregano recorded how I was preserving it. But I just wanted to show you what I do is I just kind of crumble it with my hand. And as I'm crumbling it, I will take out the larger stems. And let me show you here. Here's one that still has like a leaf on it. Usually when you just pretty much touch it, the leaves fall off. And so it was easy to pull these out. And so as I'm crumbling it, the leaves fall off and you're left with these sticks. So I was just picking them out. And then when I am done and I just have, the oregano, all I'm doing is breaking them up like this. Okay. And then, again, I'm just showing you on the stems because I didn't record me doing it on the leaves. And I get it to a point where I'm satisfied with the size. I don't powder it like I do like I did the green onion tops, but I get it to a consistency that I like. And then I just added it into my oregano jar. And I do have an oxygen absorber somewhere in this jar, somewhere in the middle. Okay. And then we're moving on to the dill. The dill, as I mentioned, I've never successfully grown this much dill in my garden. So I'm going to leave the stems on here because if I'm pickling, it's fine if these stems are in here. And there's a lot of flavor in these stems. So I'm going to put this in a Mylar bag, probably 2 Mylar bags, and I will show you how I preserve that. This is a Mylar bag, and it is a container where food can be sealed and preserved. And you do get several things with the purchase of your freeze dryer. Mylar bags, you get oxygen absorbers, your trays. The mats were extra. You can also order an extra set of trays. You also get, there's a few other things. One of them being this sealer here. So once I put the container and the oxygen absorber in the Mylar bag, I will put it on here, close it, and it will seal it. With a good seal, this food will preserve in this Mylar bag 20 to 25 years. You want to make sure your food is completely dry. I am going to put all of this dill in one container because as I open it, I can always reseal it. I was going to put it in 2 separate Mylar bags because I didn't know how much I would use it each time, but that doesn't matter. I can just reseal it. I already have the oxygen absorber in. And I'm just going to come, there's little notches where you can tear it. I don't know if you can see that, but just like when it's a notch right here on each side, I'm going to seal just above that. Because if you tear at that, then you've opened it. And to the touch, it's not hot. But all I have to do is when I close it, there's a little light that pops on here. You hold it and then it turns off. You can change the settings and make it a little bit hotter. But as you can see, there's now a seal on the back of this. And I'm going to test it and just make sure that it is sealed good. Now, sometimes for me, I will double seal. Well, I always double seal. So I'm coming out not over the same area. I'm coming out to the very edge. Okay, and that's pretty quick. You can see here, I have a second line here as a double seal. I just do that because, I don't know, I just do. So if I go and open this container, I can reseal it a little bit lower here. Okay guys, so we have preserved our dill. We have preserved our oregano and our green onion tops. And this is just one tray. So I'm going to put the second tray back in the freeze dryer and let it run a little bit longer. And I will do the same thing as we did with this one. Okay guys, so we are back and I do have the onions that we freeze dried. And one of the things about onions is they do hold a lot of moisture. So what I've done is after I run them through the freeze dryer, I'll put them in my dehydrator for about an hour on 150 just to pull a little bit more of the moisture out. That also helps with it clumping up in the container because it will try to absorb moisture. Okay, so, and if you can hear, they are pretty dry. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to powder this down. So I'm going to add the onions into my little blender. And since I didn't do a lot, I'm going to go ahead and just put all of this in here at once. I do want to run some more onions in the freeze dryer, but I think I'll wait until some of the onions that I'm going to store, if they start to look like they're going to go bad, then I'll cut them up and run them through the freeze dryer just to preserve them in a powder form. Okay, so now that we have finished that, then I'm not sure if you can see that. Oops, I keep spilling it. So that is our finished product for our onion powder. Okay guys, I'm not sure what happened with my mic, but I am going to just do a voiceover. This is the garlic chives in olive oil and the garlic chives that are in butter that I showed you earlier, and they are now frozen, and I'm going to just get these out of the silicone molds just by pressing the bottom and popping them out. You can use different type of molds. I know, like the ice trays, or if you have something that doesn't have a silicone mold, as long as you can pop it out, I mean, you can pretty much use anything. Okay, as you can see, the pucks are solid. The garlic chives are being held together by the frozen olive oil. You do want to keep these in the freezer. As you can see by my hand, the olive oil will melt pretty quickly, so I'm going to get them into a Ziploc bag that I have labeled with the garlic chive and olive oil, and we're going to get these into the freezer. I've also went ahead and popped out the garlic chives and butter. Again, you can see pretty much the same results. And so I'll store them also in the Ziploc bag and keep them in the freezer from whenever I am ready to use them, depending on what meal that I am preparing. These silicone molds, they're pretty easy to clean. You can clean them with soapy water, or if they are dishwasher safe, you can just put them in the dishwasher. They're pretty flexible and durable. I've used them a number of different ways, and they're pretty easy to clean. Okay guys, I went ahead and went to the garden and grabbed some additional herbs since I was going to have to run the freeze dryer again. So I chose these 3 herbs because I had quite a bit. So in this tray is sage, and then I also harvested some orange mint, and in this tray I also have orange mint and peppermint. I think this is peppermint or spearmint, but it is a mint. Had a great zucchini harvest. So the zucchini is really coming in right now, but I am seeing signs of the squash vine borer, so I will probably be succession planting squash really soon. Okay, guys, so that is the end of the video. I want to thank you for hanging out with me while we harvest and preserved our harvest. I have gone through, showed you guys how I freeze dry herbs, green tops. We've dehydrated some. We've done a little bit of flash freezing, and we have powdered some of our seasoning. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I want to thank you guys for hanging in there with me. And if you have any creative ways that you're preserving your harvest, please let us know. I like to try different things. And again, I like to make things a little bit easier for myself. So if I can go ahead and pre-prep some of my cooking ingredients, it's always a great thing. All right, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you are notified anytime I upload a new video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.